today we have with us Aditi, Mediratta, and Michaela Talwar with us, who are out with their new book called Naked. It's been published by Om Publishers. And I want to, both of them are stellar personalities in the creative and cultural field. So I want to make quick introductions. Aditi Mediratta started her writing career as a crime reporter for the India Today Daily and moved from writing about real crime to real crime. She's been an associate writer for films like Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, The Dirty Picture, Azhar and Badshah. She's also written a couple of scripts for two experimental shorts, that's Rajkumari Woke and The Girl in the Pink Frock, as well as co-authored a book, The Stranger in Me, in 2019. Michaela Talwar is a trained journalist and multidisciplinary artist. She's a co-founder and creative director at Harkat Studios, a boutique art studio and alternative performance space in Warsaw, which is, if you're not from Mumbai, to those watching, it's a favorite among Mumbaikars. As part of her work at Harkat, she's an arts enabler who's produced, curated and facilitated over 400 theater shows, film festivals and exhibitions over 5 years. She also leads creation and marketing of marketing video content for various studios and OTT platforms, and has co-produced several short films, including And Sometimes She Loved Me Too, and directed Rajkumari Woke. So before we speak of Naked, and I'll give a short synopsis to that in the description below as well as read it out here, I want to talk about your collaboration with Rajkumari Woke. So this makes it your second creative collaboration, Aditi and Michaela, which is so cool because you went from working on a film together in a director-writer capacity to co-authoring a book. So I kind of want, each of you can take this question in your own capacities. How does that collaboration journey change from, in the second time? What were the things maybe you all did differently, approached differently, having had experience of working with each other? So I kind of want to talk about that to start our conversation.
Okay, so Rajkumari Woke, it came across in a very came to be in a very interesting way. This was a few years ago. I think my niece was about 4 or 5 that time. And whenever I visit Delhi, like I spend time with her, and one of the things she likes doing is pretend play with me, where she pretends to be a character in a fairy tale and then I have to be somebody else and we go on. So this evening, I remember I was really tired. So I wanted to sleep. So I told her, I said, so I'm going to be the sleeping beauty and I'm going to sleep for 100 years. And after 100 years, you wake me. So then, I'm trying to recall exactly how it happened. So, but like 2 minutes later, she wakes me and she's like, wake up, your prince is here. I'm like, where's my prince? She was like, you were sleeping for 100 years. He turned to dust and Cinderella just mopped him away and threw him in the dustbin. Something like that. Okay, it was like super creative. I came back and I told Michaela about it because I was like, this was so cute and all. And from there, somehow the story grew. We were like, that's the premise. It's super interesting. And yeah, we created something around it. And then we involved her also. And that was the start of the collaboration. But it's obviously very different from Naked. In Naked, we are both writers. There, I was the writer and she was the director. So our roles were very clear cut. There was not much interference either way. Right, Mika? Did I narrate it correct?
Yeah, you have a much better memory than I have. I like my memory only sets off from where you told me the story. I forgot the entire premise. So yeah, and then when she told me that story, I thought it was really cute and it's very whimsical. And at that time we were, I think, in our third year of the 16mm Film Festival, and as part of that we also do a collaboration with Straight Eight, which is a London-based project where you take an 8mm film roll and you edit in camera. Basically, you shoot exactly in the sequence that you want to show the film, and an 8mm film roll is only 3.5 minutes. So it's an experimental sort of competition. And I thought this is great because everybody knows the story, so we didn't want to elaborate and intellectualize it. We just wanted to show that there's an alternative version of it, and that we Indianized it, and the princess looks like an Indian bride, and
she loves to sleep, and the prince just keeps waiting over endless cups of tea and something like that.
And basically in the end she lives actually the life that she wants to live, and he has turned to dust. So it's sort of a very short, whimsical feminist take on the story. And yeah, so that time the structure was pretty clear cut. So Aditi wrote it, she sent it to me. I adapted it in a way that we could shoot it in 3.5 minutes. And then she was on set in case I forget anything or I obliterate important points, which didn't happen. So it was a very peaceful and amicable collaboration, first one. And yeah, but Aditi works a lot. So Harkat Studios is a performance space, but we used to be a co-working space. And Aditi has been a part of Harkat since its inception, basically. So she writes out of our studio, and she's sort of a moonlighting part of the team. Yeah, and that's how we always know what's going on. And with this project with Naked, it came to being, as I vaguely remember, she sent something across, like an idea, and she's like, oh, this is the one pager, can you fix it? And I was like, this is so good, there's nothing to fix, let's make this much bigger. And then we just started off, and then it became much bigger. Yeah.
And that's a good thing for all of us. So, just for everyone who's watching, a quick one line on Naked is a character study disguised as an investigation, a murder mystery, into a mysterious death and an immersive meditation on life, soul connections, and what coming home truly means. I've just started reading the book, Timings, unfortunately, but I can already say, and I've obviously done a lot of research on reviews, etc., that have already started trickling in, which y'all will be very happy to read. There's some very good things being said about it, and I'm excited to delve into it properly. But the moment even the plot, someone reads the blurb, it has all the markings of a good film. It has all the markings of a good film, and both of y'all have an extensive experience writing for film or working with film, directing, producing. So, how did the decision to make it into a book come about? What was that conversation like, and how does that creative decision come to be?
I think when I sent Michaela the one pager, it was a lot of it was very internal. And what really struck her, she said the voice is very interesting. And in a film, of course, it's a very visual medium. You don't really dwell much into the narrator, into the characters' heads. And I think I've always been more of a reader than a watcher. I love reading. Watching a film, I generally fall asleep, but with a book, I'll stay up all night, then I'll finish it. And and I had already written one book, and part of me like always found that very satisfying. When you can really take your time over the story, really develop it. And Michaela also felt the same. I mean, we had our other projects going on, so I think it very organically became that way when we started writing it. Like it, yeah, it just made sense to do it as a book. We did for a bit toy with the idea of doing a screenplay, but yeah, but that was a very short-lived plan. I mean, when we started writing it as a book, it just flowed much better. It made more sense. And some part of it was also written during the pandemic, where I was at my place and she was at her place, and we were, collaborating via Google Doc. And maybe also the mood that time, you're more thoughtful, more reflective, more introspective. So yeah, it decided to be a book. I think the story decided that it wanted to be presented as a book.
Yeah, also what happened was that so we have these three different characters, and all of them see Chinky in a very different, very distinct way. So the imagination in everybody's head. So we really want to get into everybody's head, and we want to work with perception. And of course, when you read a book, the book is based on an amalgamation of people that we know. But when you read the book, you will also find people that you know to be similar to those people. So we wanted to leave that up to the reader to really merge it with their own perception, with their own imagination. Maybe they've met somebody similar to Chinky, or maybe they've met somebody similar to all the other three characters. And that is just, it's just so much more satisfying to see the book come alive on the pages, of course, but also in the reader's head.
Yeah, I agree. I get that you get a lot more space and real estate to get very creative and imaginative. Speaking of imagination, and Chinky, who you mentioned, is the protagonist whose death starts off the story. Um, there's two characters, really, Chinky and also the city of Mumbai, right? And any character study or like writing as a task of imagination, but also imagining the same character or the same city, but having your own subjective opinions about it. So how did, as co-writers, how do you find common ground with that kind of creative interpretation of a character or a situation or event, or even depicting the city itself? How do you come to were there not conflicts, but were there differences that you all wanted to say, okay, no, maybe this is not the right approach, or that's not the, maybe I don't see the character being like this? Were there conversations like that happened through the process?
So what happened is that we realized that Chinky is Mumbai. So halfway through writing it, we were like, wait, there's so much. Is she maybe the city? Is maybe she? So we've written the first draft first, and then once we went through the first draft and we realized there's a rhythm to it, and this is what the story is flowing like, then we kind of strengthen that aspect of the story and what she means to other people, that she welcomes them home, that she has her edgy sides, but she's also quite elegant in certain parts. And then she's just, so she encapsulates Mumbai from like Kalagoda to Andheri. I would say that's where it stops because that's where she lives. So that was one part that we realized, that she is the city. And then how Aditi thinks I'm a bit esoteric for thinking that. But for me, it was really such that Chinky just wrote the story and we were just in tuning and like listening what she was saying. So whenever there was never a discrepancy or like fights about how it should progress. It was more like sometimes we couldn't hear her voice and then we were both like stumped, and then we had to introspect, or we just had to give it some time, and then the story would just emerge and tell itself. That's why it was beautiful to write together, because if I would write something and then I would just hit this roadblock where I'm like, it's almost like channeling. It's like I can't hear her anymore. There's nothing. It's just blank page in front of me. And then I would go to sleep, and Aditi, who was naturally nocturnal, would write, and I would wake up in the morning. I was like, yes, exactly. This is how it should progress. It just didn't come to me, but it came to her. So I really feel we were just channeling real people who either do live in the city or they live somewhere else. But we always, when we hit a roadblock, we struggle together to find the truth, the real truth in the person. And that's how we approached it. Unless Aditi obviously thinks I'm too much into the witchcrafty part of it, maybe. But that's how I felt about it.
Aditi, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's very interesting, that you asked this question, like, did we see the characters differently? It never really occurred to me because, I mean, it's weird how much of a consensus there was. Like, I would start writing, for example, I'm writing something about Chinky, and like Mika said, I would write it, and then I would get busy with my day, and I would come back and find that she would have added on to it or taken it in another direction, which I was adding on to. But there was never any conflict, whereas characters were concerned somehow. There were some things that sometimes I would find that I've written, which Michaela has deleted. Couple of times I tried to argue with her, but then I just wrote it back and I was like, okay, I don't think she's going to notice. There is one particular line in the book, if you read, it's where Iti asks Chinky, what is manifestation? And Chinky says, everything that happens. I wrote that and then Mika deleted it. And I'm like, no, but I like that line. So I wrote it again. She noticed it, she deleted it. And then the third time I wrote it, she's like, yeah, it kind of works. And she let it stay there. So we had some minor plot disagreements now and then, but yeah, somehow on characters, we were almost always on tune. It was never like, I don't think she would behave like this or that one would behave like this. I think, yes, for some reason, both of us saw them really clearly.
But that was the beauty of it. It was almost like talking about real people. So we have the situation where we're like, okay, Iti is looking for a house for Chinky. Like, where would she search? Where would she go? And then she'd be like, yeah, so, then they meet this random broker. And I was like, yeah, and the broker's called this. And she's like, yes, that's the broker's name. And then I'm like, okay, and this is what's gonna happen then when the broker with that weird name takes them to this place. And what do you think? She's like, of course Iti won't have it. Iti will do this. And I was like, of course, this is what Iti would do. Yes. So it's almost like we're narrating a story of a friend that we both know. Yeah.
I love that.
So, Mika thinks that these people were beaming their stories into our heads. I think They're just an amalgamation of all the people we've seen in the city, bits of our own personality. That's why they feel so real. But Mika has a more witchy and more interesting take on it that, yeah, we are channeling them. But I don't know, whatever it was, it was.
Yeah.
Well, which you're not. If it creates this kind of synergy, I think that's beautiful and should be celebrated. Um, you mentioned, I mean, you mentioned how it's like possibly inspired, intuitively inspired by real life people, and Aditi, you worked with, as a crime reporter. So how much of that experience did you borrow and lean on? Um, I mean, Michaela, you can also take this question, just because she's worked as a reporter, so I wanted to direct it to her specifically because it's a mystery at the end of it.
The cups of chai in the police station definitely comes from my own experience of sitting there having lots of chai. And when I was doing this, it was long back. It was in 2003. And I remember, like, I used to always be there. Like, though I was a crime reporter, I would generally be wearing a dress with my hair nicely done up. And I'm pretty sure, like, Itti, I would also be sitting at the police station and thinking, I don't really fit into these really wrapped surroundings. So, yeah, maybe subconsciously that filtered into it. And I mean, but I remember they always served great chai. I look forward to my visits to the police station. So definitely the samosa chai has been brought in from my memories of it.
I love that.
And also, there is a scene with Abhishek and evidence, which I was actually at the police station for a very different. Excuse me. I was at the police station for a very different purpose once, for some verification, and something extremely similar happened to me. Like I saw it. It was not in my room because I wasn't in the crime department, but you know how police stations are. It's like this room does this and that room does that. And the verification room was literally on the evidence level, like on the same level where all the evidence officers were. So, and I couldn't believe it. So I told Aditi that day, it was like years ago that this happened. This happened. Can you believe it? I was like, this is all the stereotypes that you have, and they're actually true. And then she remembered when we were writing the book that, oh, yes, remember that story? We should include that. So that really happened. Very similar to what's in the book. And it's a real incident.
I like that you're also like sharing parts of your lives, stories of your own lives through this, right? And I mean, as a Mumbaiker, I love reading stories that are so rooted in just the everyday culture of the city. So I think everyone's really going to enjoy exploring that as well. A couple of other things. I know, Michaela, you are on a time crunch, so I'm gonna speed it up.
That's how we wrote the book. You have to have tight timelines, and you only have these 20 minutes
yes.
for the nap, and that's when you write.
Absolutely. So I'm going to talk about a different question later. So one thing for me, I don't think writing, there's a queer love story that's become a highlight, talking point, and I personally, I think all love stories should be just talked about as like on the same level as normal. However, I think approaching writing a queer love story, I wonder, and this is more a curiosity, does it require writing with a different lens or sensitivity or language? Were there any kind of not apprehensions, but was there a different approach you had to take just to be more sensitive and mindful, or just flew from your experiences as well?
I don't think we were consciously, trying to do it differently or thinking much about it. I mean, Abhishek, he's a bit obsessive. Like, I think all of us have been in that place, where we've been into somebody much more than they've been into us. And it was literally just drawn from that experience. So I mean, love is love, and when you feel for somebody, I don't know if it's like different when you're feeling for somebody of the same gender or of a different gender. So he's just in love with this guy, and the part of him wants it so bad that he's ready to move to another city to do it. I don't think that's only something that either straight people do or queer people do. Anybody can do that. So consciously, no, there was no thought going on that, because it's love for the same gendered person, this should be approached like that. No, it's an emotionally unavailable man, which women and men have both had experiences with. So it was just that.
And but I feel that we were very conscious of the fact that we are both mainly straight, and hence that we are writing from a lens which is not our major narrative. So obviously our we didn't want to offend anyone. That was definitely something that was there. But then we were talking about it. We realized that in the end, sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry.
In the end, in the end, it's about love.
It really is, as Sufyan, right?
Sufyan is not loving it. Such a wild interview. I'm so sorry.
You don't have to be, honestly, Michaela. So I wanted to ask you all about, books and films that have inspired you all, but I'm gonna leave that question for maybe, maybe just chat about it and make a post about it, put it in writing later. I do want to leave, finally ask generally about collaborative as a process, right? And y'all found synergy in each other that's really unmatched because, I mean, look at co-writers who literally have different working timelines. One writes at night, one writes during the day. So that really fits like so perfectly. But, you've, Aditi, collaborated with someone else on a different book as well. So for writers, and a lot of our community is all aspiring writers, some screen, some for fiction and book length stuff. When you're looking for collaborative partners, are there particular things you look for, or maybe there are some ground rules that you set at the start of the project? What is the best way to approach collaboration without at least trying to avoid future conflicts as much as possible? If they arise, they arise, but maybe keeping some things clear as you say, okay, let's work on a project together. There are some tips that you had to share with our viewers.
So most people, I think, when they're collaborating, it's usually a good idea to have some kind of an agreement that in case of conflict, this person's opinion is what supersedes. But that's not always the case. It definitely was not the case with Michaela and I, because we were collaborating equally. So if had there been a major conflict, I really don't know how it would have gone. But fortunately, there wasn't. We were able to. There were a few points of disagreement where we were able to talk about it and make the other person see their point of view. Or a couple of times, I just sneakily wrote what I had to write, and then Michaela eventually gave up trying to correct it, or read me. I don't know. But I think intuitively you can tell when somebody's on the same page. I mean, long back a little bit whether this is working or not. Sometimes you realize that you're completely not in sync with that person. You're seeing something with a completely different lens. Then it's usually better to cut your losses and not continue collaborating or have a discussion about whose voice is going to be listened to. But with Michaela and I, we were pretty much on the same page about most things. The few differences we had, we were able to talk to each other and reach amicable solutions. Couple of times, I just she deleted stuff which I wrote again, and then she let it be. There were things like that also which happened. But I think it also requires a bit of mutual respect for each other. If she would think that Aditi's an idiot, or I would think that she doesn't know what she's talking about, it would not work. So whenever one of us had an opinion that was in disagreement with the other, we both listened. And also I think we have we have similar strengths, but we also have, like, Mika is much more visual than me. So when it came to descriptions, I would not interfere too much. So yeah, I think you figure it out early on whether this collaboration is going to work or not.
And yeah, you all have collaborated before, so that might have helped, I guess.
That might have helped. Yeah, and she's always been my sounding board for my projects. Like whenever I've written something, I give it to her to check. And I mean, she can be harsh in her critique, but I know that it's honest. So if she says she loves something, like, okay, she means it.
Yeah, I agree that the mutual respect is definitely like the major point. Because like when you wake up in the morning and you read something and you're like, wow, this is brilliant, that just makes you want to continue with the project.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, like Aditi said, during times of conflict, that respect is what, would help you all kind of get over it as well if there are differences. Conflict is too harsh a word. But I know Michaela has to go, and I think this really covers both the writing process, and I'm really excited for readers to start experiencing the world you all have created with the Naked, the book. For everybody, the Mumbai launch is happening on 22nd August at Tidal Waves, right, in Bandra. And I hope, I look forward to meeting you in person there personally. And yeah,
Oh my
I
gosh! Wow.
yeah, I'm gonna be there. And all the very best. This looks like an absolute winner of a book, if I may say so. And I hope everyone enjoys the world of Mumbai as richly depicted as y'all have. Thank you, Michaela and Aditi.
Oh my god! Thank you so much.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much,
you so
Prakriti.
much.
That really means
It was
a
such a
lot.
pleasure.
Yeah, I
Thank
wish we could have talked some more. But
This-
when you come for the launch, we will talk more. And
Yeah, yeah. We'll have a coffee and chat. You like coffee, right?
I do. We will definitely catch up. Post or
God,
pre, we can
that
figure
is
it out.
okay.
Thank you so
Okay, cool,
thank you
amazing.
so
Thank you
much.
so much. This
Thank you.
was really.
And if anybody wants to get in touch with us, the book is also on Instagram. It's called Dot Novel, and both of us are sort of handling it. So you can just shoot a question there.
I will
as well.
put links. I will
Yeah,
put
be
links
happy
to
to answer.
that. Yeah, I'll put links to that in the description, and as well as links to buy the book. As Purple Pencil Project, we always
Okay.
encourage people to visit their local bookstores as much as possible. But otherwise, there'll be links. There'll be links to a few bookstores as
Yeah, that's a great idea.
yeah, and there will be the Amazon link as well. So
Yeah,
I encourage everyone to get a copy. And
I think it's available at Book Lovers.
it was, yeah. So Book Lovers is in Lokhandwala. Title
And in Delhi, it's available in Delhi. It's available in all Om bookstores. So that's quite
And Full
straightforward.
Circle and Bahari Sons and of course Tidal Waves here and Kunzum. So
Kunzum.
these are some of our favorite bookstores. So if we get more traffic, they're great.
If anybody has their favorite bookstore and they don't see the book over there, tell us.
Yeah,
Make
we'll have it
sure it goes
arranged.
there.
Absolutely, in one with the book industry. So thank you so much.